Millions of people will see their wages rise in the new year as the federal minimum wage proposal from the White House remains stalled. In Congress, 21 states are taking it upon themselves to hike hourly wages. But will this do more harm than good? Here to debate the issue, Jessica Ehrlich, Democratic strategist and attorney, and Katherine Timpf, reporter for the National Review. Let me start with you, Katherine. The argument about raising the minimum wage is that you might have employers who decide, OK, we'll raise the minimum wage, but I'm not going to employ as many people. Is that a valid argument that is supported by past history?
Of course, in a lot of instances it is. Most people agree that know anything about the economy that it'll at least eliminate starter jobs, a lot of starter jobs, because workers, or rather, employers aren't going to look at a beginning worker and say, oh, if I have to pay this much, I'm going to take a chance on this guy, which robs these people of the opportunity, the least skilled workers, of the opportunity to kind of start small, start at the bottom and work their way up.
Well, Jessica, let me bring you into the discussion on the fact that, a lot of news yesterday, Shake Shack and their IPO, but everyone pointed out that Shake Shack pays its workers higher than minimum wage here in New York City, and they're highly popular and highly successful. Is that the argument?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen this time and again. This is an age-old argument since they first announced that there was going to be a federal minimum wage back during the Depression, and we've still continued to see job growth in a growing economy. And in fact, even with the increase in minimum wage that we're going to be seeing in multiple states around the country, Walmart has even said that they can absorb these costs because it's very minimal. I mean, we're looking at the federal minimum wage being set at $7.25, the average going up to around $8. That really is not a huge increase. We're talking about the highest it'll go up to is $9.15.
So, Jessica, what about the non-Walmart small store? Can they absorb the increase?
Well, I believe that they can, particularly when we're talking about
You believe they can, but can they? I mean, when we talk to small business owners, they say no, they can't. Yes, Walmart can do it, but the mom or dad who has one or two franchises, can they?
With the franchises, absolutely. I think it comes down to more even literally where you're talking mom and pop shops where they've got one or two people employed and they're very small. And there's some concern, I think, actually about if there's an increase in minimum wage and if they're having to deal with health care issues as well. But it's interesting because the minimum wage was actually passed into law in several states on this last ballot in November. So it's very popular. I mean, and polling has it where even in states like in Florida where it wasn't, it still is over 50% popular to have an increase in the minimum wage.
Katherine, let me bring you into this and just make out the point that the vast majority of people earning the minimum wage are in families, and these are studies that have shown this, are already in families where there is a wage earner who has far greater than minimum wage. Is this really a non-discussion? What we should be talking about is how to deliver services to the impoverished some other way, because it's the taxpayer who's going to wind up paying anyway.
Right. Well, the whole point here, the bottom line is this isn't really helping the people it's supposed to help. In families that are below the federal poverty line, less or about 7%, only about 7% of them have one member working a full-time job at all. So what they don't need is an hourly wage increase. They need jobs. The problem is that they don't make enough because they don't have jobs or because they're not working enough, not because they don't make enough per hour.
Is that accurate, Jessica?
Well, I don't think so here. I mean, we're looking at, first, there's two issues. One is that the increase in the minimum wage is actually going to bring in... It is accurate,
Jessica. And she's making a valid point.
But it's over half of the people who get the minimum wage right now. You're talking about people who are deeply impoverished. There's a difference between people who get the minimum wage. You're looking at over half of them are women. Over half of them are actually representing their family, and 56% of them do have full-time jobs. So it is they're working multiple jobs at minimum wage and still barely to eat by. So this isn't, the minimum wage increase isn't going to make anyone wealthy, but it's going to pump money into the economy based at around $1.5 billion in the next year.
Jessica, the number of people, though, in that category you just described, and I'm not saying that they don't need assistance and that as citizens of the greatest country on the planet and the wealthiest country on the planet, we don't have some responsibility, but it's such a small number in genuine terms. Aren't there better ways to help these people than this increase? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really help them as much as perhaps the political argument says it will.
I mean, in what other ways are you referring to? Getting them, I don't know.
Getting them daycare for their children. Getting them daycare for their children so they can get an education.
Here.
Well, yeah, as long as people don't call that an entitlement program and try to cut funding for it. I mean, it's a chicken and egg situation. I mean, we're talking about two separate things. I'm fully supportive of daycare situations where people can go and increase their training and get out of their, low-income jobs into higher-income jobs, hopefully, and continue on in that way. Well, but we're always going to have minimum wage jobs. I mean, that is the bottom line.
Katherine, you get the last word on this.
The government can't decide what labor is worth. Only the free market, baby. That's the only thing that can decide that. It just, unless they can see into people's minds and their businesses and see into the future of the economy, this isn't even really up for debate.
Well, actually, in 21 states, the government did decide what the free market's going to pay.
They took their best guess
decided
at what
the voters.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying the government actually did. Whether it's right or wrong is going to play out as we go forward. Both of you, thank you very much and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.